Hello everyone. In the last class, we were discussing about a construction of a rectangle related to the theorem 1. Let C be an oriented plane curve, then there exists a global parameterization C if and only if C is connected. This was the theorem, and for the sufficient part we were proving if C is connected, we were proving that it has a global parameterization. For that, in between we were required to construct a rectangle B. That construction we were doing yesterday. Now we will continue the theorem how to prove it. Let us go through the steps once again. We are supposing that C is connected. There exists a, since it is connected, there exists a map beta from AB to C with beta of A equal to P and beta of B equal to P1. What is P1? P1 is some image. The P1 is a element that we are taking from image alpha. So here in the proof, just see, we are supposing that C is connected and we are taking a point P from C. Let alpha from I to C be the local parameterization we are taking. We have to show that this is a global parameterization. Okay. So first we are taking, we know that alpha is a maximal integral curve of the vector field X at P. That alpha, whatever we are taking, this will be a maximum integral curve of X. X is the vector field, tangent vector field at that point P, where X is obtained by rotating the normal direction vector in minus pi by 2. That we know how to get the tangent, that we have already discussed. And here C is F inverse of Cn is, this is the orientation that we are considering. So our claim is, if you take another point P1 from C, we have to prove that P1 is an element of image of alpha. Okay, so that alpha will give you all the points of this curve C. That's how we are saying, and this is a global parameterization, correct? So since C is connected, so we are assumption is C is connected. So there exists a continuous map beta from AB to C with beta of A equal to P and beta of B equal to P1. So you can find such a map so that you can connect between P and P1. Okay. Now we will prove that beta of T is an element of image of alpha for all T in closed interval AB. That is what we have to prove. So if you consider any point P1 from your curve C, so you may take any endpoint or any point, you can say that the complete curve beta, the map beta is coming as image of alpha. That means alpha will give you as a global parameterization. This is the concept. So for that we are constructing a rectangle for that. So here we have taken T naught as the least upper bound. We don't know whether for all values of T it is going to be an image of alpha. So we are supposing that up to the point T, this is going to be inside image of alpha, we are thinking. So that T we are collection of that T we are taking in that maximum whichever it is, that I am taking as T naught. Okay, so maximum whichever it is coming as T naught I am taking. So corresponding to the T naught, corresponding to the T naught, I am taking beta of T naught. Okay, beta of T naught I am taking as a point. That beta of T naught will come in image of alpha, right? If it is in image of alpha, that means it is an element of C, correct? So that point I am taking as P naught, and about P naught I am finding an integral curve of X. Okay, so at the point P naught, integral curve I am taking as gamma. At the point P, the integral curve was alpha. Now new point I have constructed is P naught, that is about beta of T naught. Beta of T naught, how I am getting? T naught is the least upper bound of this map is going to become inside your image of alpha. So this gamma is you are taking as a new integral curve corresponding to this point beta of T naught, and that is P naught. And gamma of 0 will come as that point P naught by the definition of the integral curves. Okay, then about that point we have constructed the rectangle B. About that point we have constructed the rectangle. This was the rectangle we have constructed. So this P naught I am taking here, it can come up to here also. So we don't know where will come. This generally it is taken this point P. Okay, so up to this point P naught, and we are constructing a rectangle like this, and rectangle we have constructed in such a way that this is your gamma and this is your full integral curve, and intersection with B and C will come image of gamma. That was our construction, intersection with intersection with, this was the conclusion we have done for the intersection with C and B will come image of gamma. So, such a rectangle B we have constructed. Now, let us continue. Now, beta is a continuous map we are taken. So, that means your beta of t will be element of B for all t in closed interval a b. So, we do not know whether actually that last point is going to be in your image, but you can say that it can come in B because of the continuity and for delta greater than 0 for this much short interval, you can say that it will come again inside your B because of the continuity of beta. We know continuous image of a set will come continuous only, so the next point also will come inside. So, that means B will come inside, up to B it will come inside B. So, that means beta of t is coming in image of gamma, and sorry, beta of t is already in C by beta of t we have taken it is a mapping from mapping we have taken from A B to that set C, right. So, beta of t is already an element of C and beta of t is element of B also now. So, that means beta of t is coming in B intersection C as well, but B intersection C is coming as a subset of image of gamma. This is completely containing image of gamma by the construction of your rectangle B. That means beta of t is coming as element of image of gamma. Okay. So, what is beta of t? Beta of t is coming from this with the modulus of t minus t naught should come less than delta, such t we are taking. Okay. So, this beta of t is coming as element of image of gamma, but also already we know that beta of t is an element of image of alpha for this up to t naught, correct. We have taken the least upper bound as t naught and such a collection we have taken. So, beta of t will come in image of alpha up to the point of t naught. That means you can say that beta of t will be element of both image of gamma and image of alpha up to that t for some t in this interval that is coming up to t naught. Okay. So, the beta of t is an element of intersection of image of gamma and image of alpha. Therefore, gamma and alpha are integral curves of x passing through a common point, right, because here t naught is coming in this, that for corresponding to t naught it will come in both the images, right. So, for alpha and also for gamma beta of t is coming in that image set. That means both the integral curves are passing through beta of t naught, correct, that is the point, common point. So, it is passing through a common point beta naught. So, since alpha is maximal, you can say that everything will come inside only. So, image of gamma should come as a subset of image of alpha. By the construction I told that C curve is coming, and in that part is only coming, that intersection part we have told. That means image of gamma will come inside your image of alpha. That means beta of t is an element of C intersection B which is contained in image of gamma and also which is contained in image of alpha. So, for all t element of closed interval a comma b with modulus of t minus t naught is less than delta, which is possible only when t naught is equal to b. So, that means up to b it will go so that beta of t will come as image of alpha. That t naught should be up to what it should go? It should go up to b. That means beta of t is an element of image of alpha. So, for all t in closed interval a b, this is going to be true. So, if this is true, you can say that alpha is a global parameterization of C. Hence, you can say that for every connected curve C, there exists a global parameterization. So, this is the theorem. So, the construction you have to learn separately and you have to continue from here. We are taking the continuity of beta and we are showing here that beta of t is an element of image of alpha for this condition, but this is possible only when t naught is going to be b only. So, the figure whatever we have drawn is like a tentative figure only, that t naught is always come to the end of b. Up to that point you can take the t naught. So, whatever beta interval you have chosen, that will completely coming inside your image of alpha. So, that means your beta of t is coming in image of alpha. So whatever mapping you take from a point P to any other point P1, that will completely come inside your curve C. So that means the C alpha is giving the complete parameterization, that is the global parameterization of the curve C. Hence you can say that for every connected curve C is a connected curve if and only if it has a global parameterization. That was, it's an oriented plane curve, that is already given. So it's an important theorem that you have to learn. Now we have a theorem 2. Let C be a connected oriented plane curve and beta from I to C be a unit speed global parameterization of C. Then beta is either one-to-one or periodic. This is what we have to prove first. Beta is one-to-one or periodic, means if C is connected oriented plane curve, we have proved that it will have a global parameterization, correct? So we have taken beta as the global parameterization here, that is also unit speed global parameterization of C. We have to prove that such a global parameterization will be either one-one or periodic. Now another result we have to prove is, if beta is periodic, then that is if and only if C is compact. So whatever we are connected plane curve, oriented plane curve, it will have a global parameterization. So if we consider a unit speed global parameterization, that will be either one-to-one or periodic for sure. If it is periodic, that periodic if it is, then C will be a compact plane curve. Okay, so this is the two results we have to prove. The first one we will prove that one-one or periodic. So the method is, we will suppose that the beta is not one-one, then we will prove that it is periodic. So then by the contrapositive statement you can say that if it is not periodic, then it will be one-one. This is a form of a proof. So in the first part we are going to prove that suppose that beta is not one-one, then it is periodic. That's what we are going to prove. So let us take beta as the global parameterization of unit speed of C. Suppose beta of T1 equal to beta of T. If it is not 1, then it is T not equal to T2 it will come, correct? So this is our supposition, beta is not 1. So that means beta of T1 equal to beta of T2 for T1 not equal to T2, some T1, T2 in I. Okay. Now x be the unit speed tangent vector field on C corresponding to some T1, T2 element, x be unit speed tangent vector field on C, okay, corresponding to which is that integral curve beta is the integral curve, okay, and let alpha be the maximal integral curve of x with alpha of T0 is equal to beta of T1 equal to beta of T2. So here beta is an integral curve, and what we are taking that alpha is a maximal integral curve of x, okay. So what will happen if it is maximal, alpha of 0 will come as beta of T1 equal to beta of T2, because beta of T1 and beta 2 are equal. So you can write in this format. So here, since beta is an integral curve, uniqueness, we know that uniqueness and existing theorem, we have uniqueness you can take from that. So you can say that beta of T will be equal to alpha of T minus T1. Here, from here only we are taking, see, if beta equal to T1, what will happen here? Alpha of T1 minus T1 alpha of 0, so you will get this, right? So this T's are coming from where your I is the domain of your beta, okay. So for all T from domain of beta, this must be true because it is unique, it is a part of the maximal integral. Beta will be coming as a part of the maximal integral curve, so this must be true for all T in I. So beta of T will be equal to this. Also we have beta of T2 equal to alpha of 0. So from that you can write here beta of T equal to this. You can see when T equal to T2, you will get alpha of 0 equal to beta of T2. So that is also true. So from these two results, I am going to derive another result. Like see, let me set tau equal to T2 minus T1. So I can rewrite beta of T equal to alpha of T minus T1, and I am going to insert T2, adding and subtracting T2 inside. So I will get in this format. So T2 minus T1 I have taken as tau. So I can replace T2 minus T1 as tau. So I can write it as t plus tau minus t2. So alpha of t plus tau minus t2. So again by this definition, instead of t we have here t plus 2, right? So instead of t here I can write t plus 2. So what I got, beta of t equal to beta of t plus 2. So you can write here beta of t equal to beta of t plus 2 for all t such that t and t plus 2 must be coming in I. That means how comes when what we will say that if beta comes like beta is periodic, means after some tau interval it is repeating again and again. That means if beta is not 1 1, beta is periodic. So that is the first result we have proved. So on the opposite you can say that if beta is not periodic, then beta will be 1 1. That is a contrapositive statement. Now next part is, if beta is periodic, we have to show that your C is compact. Okay, so if beta is periodic, which implies C is the image of beta from T naught comma T naught plus 2, correct? Because it is periodic, so periodic interval T naught to up to tau length it will be repeating again and again. So the entire C will be mapped from T naught comma T naught plus 2, right? So see here beta is a continuous map, right? So this is a closed and bounded figure, so this is a compact. So continuous image of a compact set is again compact, so that means C is compact. So one side is proved, that is if beta is periodic, then C is compact. On the other side we will prove like beta is not periodic, then C is not compact. That is the next part we will prove. So suppose that beta is not periodic. If it is not periodic, by the previous result what you can say, beta should be 1 1, right? If beta is 1 1, then what you can say, your beta inverse must be continuous. That is the results from your real analysis. Okay, so if beta or topology you can say, if beta is 1 1, beta inverse is continuous on C, but will not be attaining its maximum value, because it is 1 1 and it is continuous, it will not have a maximum value. That means not going to be bounded, hence we can say that it is not compact. Here we have taken beta inverse continuous directly. Let us see how it will come continuous. Let us see that when beta is 1 1, how it is continuous. Let us see. Given T naught is an element of I and epsilon greater than 0, we will set gamma of t equal to, in this format we will set for modulus of t less than epsilon and T naught plus t plus T naught element of I. So you are setting a gamma. So we are setting a gamma in such a way that gamma of t will come as beta of t plus T naught. Okay, with modulus of t we have taken as less than epsilon. Now choose an open rectangle B about P naught. Okay, P naught, what is P naught? The value of beta at T naught we are taking as P naught in the same construction of the previous theorem. Okay, then gamma of 0 will come as when t equal to T naught. Beta of T naught means t equal to 0, that is gamma of 0. So that point comes as P naught. So we are constructing a rectangle B about P naught such that C intersection B is coming in image of gamma. So the same rectangle construction we are taking here as well. Okay, then what will happen? You have to prove that it is continuous, right? So beta inverse of P minus T naught is equal to, you can write beta inverse of P is same as your gamma inverse of P. You can write T naught as gamma inverse of P naught, correct? So this is equal to this, you can write it as equal to gamma inverse of P, because gamma inverse of P naught will come as 0, correct? So you can write this as, see, beta inverse of P naught is same as gamma inverse of P naught, correct? So instead of T naught I can write it as beta inverse, this is beta inverse of your P naught, correct? So beta inverse of P minus beta inverse of P naught means beta inverse of P minus T naught, that is same as beta gamma inverse of P minus gamma inverse of P naught, that is gamma inverse of P, which will be less than epsilon. Why? We have gamma inverse of P means, if you are considering a point P, so this gamma inverse of P means T alone, right? So modulus of T is always less than epsilon. So gamma inverse of P is your T, correct? So this is your T. So modulus of T is coming less than epsilon whenever, what is this, beta inverse of P is T minus this is T naught. So that is T minus T naught is coming less than delta, or a very small number. So that means beta inverse is continuous. All these P's are coming from C intersection B, that also you note down. So that means your beta inverse is going to be continuous. Once again, what we have done, beta inverse of P minus beta inverse of P naught. How we are taking T minus T naught, that is same as this, which is equal to, you can write in this formula, which is less than epsilon. So this is going to be less than epsilon. Okay, so that means what you can say, you can say that beta inverse is continuous. So since it is continuous and it is 1 1, beta is 1 1 and beta inverse is continuous, it will not attain a maximum value, right? So that C is not going to be a bounded thing, so that means C is not compact. So if beta is not periodic, C is not compact. So hence you can conclude that if beta is periodic, if and only if C is beta is periodic, if and only if C is compact. So directly we are not proving like C is compact, beta is periodic. It's not the way. We are taking positive and negative statement to prove the negativity of the other statement. Okay, that's a proof, particular type of proof only. So hope you understood the proof as such. Very important concepts, both the theorems are very important. Anyone can come for the examination. Please prepare the note carefully from the textbook and the video. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you.